Growing up, what was normal to me was seeing over like 20 people coming to my house, in and out. I just remember the whole house being covered with smoke, and I would find things on the ground, and I didn't know what it was until I walked into the bathroom and I saw my mom and dad. I didn't know then, but I knew now what they were smoking, and they were smoking ice. When I was 5, there was a day that I remember when I was in the living room. I remember the first thing that happened was the door broke down, and I remember hearing a loud noise, and I remember seeing guys come in with shields. I remember one of the guys who had the shield, took my mom. And I remember my dad saying, "Don't worry, son, we'll come back." My mom was like, "Don't worry, they're just gonna take us, for a little bit. We'll be back." I remember my dad, he looked back at me, he said, "Son, all right, Daddy's just gonna go on a field trip right now. I'm gonna be back." By the time I was 12, 13, this life was already normal to me. At that time, I already began to smoke weed and go in different relationships. And my cousin would take me to show me where everything was at. And I remember watching him pick up from these places, picking up weed, coke, ice, all these different types of drugs. And I remember being young, watching him. I remember I began to roll up my blunts and with weed, and I began to put coke inside for the first time. And I remember I began to do it every day. And I remember feeling paranoid. I remember feeling that, people were looking for me. I remember getting a call from my cousin. He told me to meet him at this spot. And I waited for a long time. But coming to find out that it was a drug deal gone wrong. And I remember just waiting at that spot and seeing my cousin's truck drive back, thinking that I would see my cousin again. And I was like, "Hey, where my cousin at?" Everybody was crying, and I remember my grandma was shooting down the truck. And I remember seeing blood and different parts of his body falling on the ground, and I just couldn't believe. A few years later, I found myself following the footsteps of my cousin. When I was 15, and I received a call from my friends in the neighborhood. They were saying that there was this group of people that they owed money to one of the boys, and my friends called me to go with them. So we pull up, I got the car, went up to the group of guys, and I grabbed the guy. All I remember was seeing a Nike shoes hit me right in my mouth. I fell onto the ground. Then all I could remember was them stepping on my head and them beating me so bad that the gravel from the road was stuck in my head. And I remember me trying to get away, and it was all blurry. And I threw myself over the fence. And I remember looking at my shirt, it was all red, it was all blood. And the guy was cleaning his yard. And I said, "Excuse me, sir, man, could you take me home?" Mind you, I don't know how I got away. He brought me in the car. And there's one thing that stood out in that car. And he looked at me, he said, I may not know you, but I want to let you know that Jesus loves you." I went back to the neighborhood, mad. This guy came up, and he said that he was a youth leader from a church down the street. I was like, "All right, I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing at 2 o'clock in the morning?" You know what I mean? Like, you want a 40, or like, "What's up? You here to party?" And he looked at me. He was like, he said, "No, man, I was just like you. I remember drinking 40s and drinking all night, but I felt lonely inside. And someone prayed for me. And he said, I want to know if I could pray for you too. Ever since that prayer, my life hasn't been the same. I'm 21 years old now, and I have a Bible study in the same streets that I walked on, the same streets that I used to smoke and drink and put in work in, and now I'm putting in work in for God and reaching out to the people there in the streets. I never pictured myself doing this, but it's because of God, and I thank God for His mercy, His grace, and His chances of Him giving me a place and giving me a chance. I thank God for who He is, for sending His Son for a foolish man. This is only something that God would think about. It's only something that God would do. And if you're out there, maybe you was raised up like me, and maybe you don't have a mom or have a dad, and maybe they're locked up. Well, I want to let you know right now that there's still hope. That, man, through God you could do all things, and God is knocking at your door right now. The same way He was trying to get my attention, He's trying to get your attention. And I'm here to let you know that respond to God now and watch what God could do with your life. My name is Rayden, and this is my story.